When a system lockup occurs, you'll need to intervene by forcing a memory dump. This is different from all the crashes we've looked at so far, as Windows automatically crashed the system. Here, with a hang, we need to manually intervene to capture a memory dump. So in this section, I'm going to show you how to go about forcing memory dumps. There are several ways to force a crash depending on whether the system has a keyboard or remote diagnostic capabilities. With most desktop and laptop systems, one utilizes a keyboard keystroke combination. That is the right controls key plus the scroll lock key twice. By doing this keystroke combination, you can effectively crash the system. You have to go ahead and set up a registry key beforehand, and I'll talk about this in just a moment. Now, with most servers, you'll utilize what's known as a non-maskable interrupt, or NMI. And this is a physical button or virtual NMI button that's accessible via a remote diagnostic tool. Now, with virtual machines, you can crash them with a debug-vm PowerShell commandlet. This is used with the switch called -inject non-maskable interrupt. The only gotcha is that the Hyper-V host must be running Windows 2012 R2 or later. Finally, there's a tool called Not My Fault. This is by Mark Russinovich with the sysinternals website. The gotcha here is that the system must be minimally functional so that you can log in and actually run the tool to cause the system to crash. At this point, we'll talk about how to set up the keystroke combination to go ahead and cause the system to crash. What you'll do is utilize the right control key plus the scroll lock key and hit it twice. And this has to be done on the actual console. You can't RDP into the system and expect this keystroke combination to work. What you'll do is add a registry value called crash on control scroll and set it to a value of 1. Now, the place where you put this crash on control scroll registry key depends on whether you have a USB type keyboard or the legacy PS2 type. Here we have a USB keyboard, so we'll add that crash on control scroll parameter to the following HKey local machine /system/current control set /services KBD HID, that's the keyboard human interface device, /parameters. Just add the crash on control scroll as a reg D word and set it to a value of 1. Now, if you have the older PS2 type keyboards on your system, you would add the same crash on control scroll parameter just to a slightly different path in the registry. It would be under services /I8042 PRT instead of the KBD HID. In either case, it does take a reboot for this parameter to take effect. It will, in fact, result in a stop E2 type bug check, which is known as a manually initiated crash. For more details, you can see the Microsoft documentation on forcing a system crash from the keyboard that you see at the bottom of the slide. So it's possible to change the crash keystroke to something other than the right control scroll lock. This is because many of the systems nowadays don't even have scroll lock keys. So we can go ahead and change that keystroke combination by adding a couple registry values. One of them is called dump1 keys and the other one is called dump2 key. Now that's not a typo. The second parameter there doesn't have an S at the end. For example, I'm going to show you the registry parameters you would change to make the keystroke combination use a left control plus the capital D key twice to force a crash with a USB keyboard. Here you could see I've created a file called setcrashkey.reg. The first command in that file would be regedit4. Then we leave a blank line and then go ahead and put in the registry key where we're adding these two parameters, namely HKey local machine /system/current control set /services /KBD HID /crash dump, and we add those two dump keys, dump1 keys, and set it to a hex value of 20, and dump2 key to a value of 21. And doing so, once you just type out this file, just do the set crash key.reg, and it'll automatically add these registry parameters for you. And of course, a reboot is necessary for this to take effect. Now, if you do plan to change the crash keystroke, you'll need to remove any previous references to crash on control scroll that you may have made. The typical way to force a crash on a server is to use a non-maskable interrupt, or NMI. This can be accomplished in several ways: by pressing a physical NMI button. You can see the Microsoft KB article 275-0146 where it describes how to do so. Or you can press a virtual NMI button via a remote diagnostic tool, such as the ILO on the HP servers. You can see Microsoft KB article 927-069, which discusses how to do this. Now, in either of these cases, behind the scenes is a registry value called NMI crash dump, setting that to a value of 1. Now, in Windows Server 2012 and later, we no longer need to set that registry parameter, so you can literally crash a system right out of the box. Either of these two mechanisms will result in a Stop 80 bug check, or an NMI hardware failure. Now that Hyper-V and virtual machines are becoming more and more prevalent, you need to know how to force a crash on a virtual machine. There's primarily two different ways to go about doing this: the traditional crash keystroke that we just learned about. The only caveat here is that you must be connected to the virtual machine via the Hyper-V Manager. And this will result in a Stop E2 type bug check. Another way to crash a virtual machine is utilizing the debug-vm PowerShell commandlet, along with the -inject non-maskable interrupt -force. This will allow you to crash a virtual machine that's running on a Hyper-V server. The only thing here is that that Hyper-V host must be running at least Windows Server 2012 R2 or later, because that's when that commandlet first came into existence. This crash will result in a Stop 80 bug check, or an NMI hardware failure. Finally, there's a real cool tool by Mark Russinovich called Not My Fault that can be used to crash a system. The big caveat here, however, is that the system must be minimally functional. You must be able to log in and run Not My Fault for it to be able to crash the system. So with a total lockup, this is not an option. This tool does provide a graphical user interface which literally allows you to pick your poison. How do you want to crash the system? It also has a command line interface which is incredibly useful for scripting. Well, I'll show you in a later module how to go about scripting a crash dump when a particular event may occur. You can get this tool as a free Microsoft download. You'll find it documented in Microsoft KB article 969028.